Why American football is weird. Let's see why that is.
During an average NFL game, you only watch about 11 minutes of actual gameplay. The rest is replays, pauses, and...
say their name.
commercials. Nowadays, everybody talks about them. The crazy costs, the unpredictability, the controversy. Some people even watch the game just for the commercials. They have become a cultural phenomenon and helped to turn the Super Bowl into the most watched TV broadcast since the moon landing. But it wasn't always like that.
That's actually insane. Honestly, I know we're like 30 seconds in, but I'm going to pause it because the commercials is surprisingly big, okay? So as a guy coming from the UK, coming from Europe, where commercials are just like a nuisance and a time to go to the bathroom, here in America, when I've been here, I watched my first ever Super Bowl, okay? Eagles versus the Chiefs. Chiefs lost. Everyone loved it, okay? But that's besides the point. Like a lot of people I was watching it with don't actually care about the football, but they were saying like, whoa, I've heard the ads are so expensive this year, 8 million for an ad slot, they're going to be so good, they're going to be so funny. And to be fair, they were weird ads. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, the Tubi ad with the guy who had like the hat for the head, I mean, the ads are strange and unlike anything I've ever seen. But they wouldn't, I don't know, as a European guy, I don't feel like it's not encouraging me to watch the Super Bowl. I mean, that's a weird reason to watch, but that's also the first stat with the 11 minutes of gameplay. Can that be real? Because you got 4 quarters, I think, of 15 minutes or something. Surely you can't just have 11 minutes. That's less than 1 quarter in total. So I think that's waffle, to be honest. I think that's fake. But there's certainly a lot of commercials. I'll give them that. They're right on that one. The commercials, tons of them.
The turning point was in 1984, when Apple aired a commercial that was unlike anything people had seen. It didn't just sell a product, it changed the Super Bowl forever. Welcome to Athletic Interest. Who is the coolest kid in high school? The guy she tells you not to worry about. The captain of the football team. And that's for 3 reasons: American culture, the structure of a football game, and Apple. So first, the captain of the football team should thank these 2 guys. American football is deeply rooted in history and common culture because in 1967, the 2 rival football leagues had one goal: maximizing profit from the exponentially growing television market. Their solution: have the best teams compete against each other to crown one national champion. And 65 million people tuned in. A third of America's population at that time. For a brand new format that was long before Taylor Swift and flashy halftime shows. American football as a sport worked. The new championship format made it even cooler.
That's crazy, actually. The whole country was split east and west. So I've been to Nashville, okay? And there, tailgating, so it was flashed up on screen like just 2 seconds ago, but tailgating is huge, okay? And not only is that a big thing, it's a big thing for like college sports or whatever you call it over here. College sports is huge. Tailgating is like a massive thing. You camp out, you have a little cookout, you drink beers, and then you watch the game together all out of like the back of your trucks. It's a weird tradition. I would personally, again, a culture shock. I've never seen that kind of stuff. We don't really do that kind of stuff. The most you get maybe is like pre-gaming before you go and watch a football game in a stadium, but like a soccer game, you know, like proper football, not like fake American football where you don't actually use your foot very often, you know, that kind of stuff. So that was a culture shock, but I kind of liked it. It was fun. Everyone was getting together. There was a buzz going. It was lively. So yeah, but I think it's great though that like 2 separate football divisions from that kind of essentially split the country east and west. Well, actually, they managed to come together and play like a playoff game. They had the brackets and then just crown like one champion. Like that's great business for them. Honestly, like I don't see people doing that in Europe. Like in Europe, you have all these different leagues, you know, for football, like for soccer, you know, you have all these different leagues and they don't really compete and it's different teams, blah, 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 blah. I don't really care too much, so I'm not that into it. But the collaboration is not the same as in America. Like the American culture is very much like, let's build something together and promote each other so we can all get to the top, which I like very much. I think it's really healthy.
So this guy became a big deal. The second reason, the structure of a football game. NFL games are split into 4 15-minute quarters with a 12 to 13-minute halftime. But in reality, a game lasts over 3 hours, thanks to all the clock stoppages, timeouts, and you guessed it, commercial breaks. The NFL broadcasts are among the most interrupted broadcasts of any sport. For comparison, a Premier League game. So what are we actually watching? According to the Wall Street Journal, a typical NFL broadcast breaks down like this. Instead of 60 minutes, we actually only get to watch around 11 minutes of actual playing time.
Which is insane. There's no way. I actually want to see this breakdown because 11 minutes out of 60 is madness. I mean, look, I understand that you get ads and stoppage and timeouts and flags and, there's a lot of pausing in the game of football, admittedly. When I'm used to soccer, where you don't really pause that often, and if there's a foul, it's going to come kind of quickly. Whereas the American football is like always pausing, always ads, always this, always that. Like, it's different. But to say out of 60 minutes that you only get 11 of actual gameplay, I'm struggling to believe that one. So I need to see this breakdown. Let's see what's going on.
Rest is replay and players standing around. Commercials. A good distraction, and there is a lot of distraction. The average NFL fan watches about 4 hours of NFL per week. Including playoffs, there are 21 weeks of NFL coverage during a season. That means the fan accumulates a total watch time of about 88 hours, and 1/3 of that, so 29 hours, are ads. Basically, fans lose 4 workdays a season watching ads. The upside? Companies nowadays spend a fortune on Super Bowl slots, so at least these ads are way more entertaining. They've become
in the Super Bowl ad slots this year for Eagles vs Chiefs was $8 million, by the way. I don't know if he's going to mention it. He might mention it, but I know for a fact, like this was put online, it's all over my ex, $8 million for a single slot, okay, in the NFL. That is like the most expensive advertising slot I know of. I don't know what the World Cup, like the football World Cup is in terms of advertising slot cost, but 8 mil is mad, okay? That's a lot of money. And you can tell because it's always recognizable big brands putting ads on. You do not see any small brands doing ads. And it's kind of fun because they make them unique, but also some weird ones, weird ones for sure.
Become must-see TV moments. And this is because of Apple. The first Super Bowl in 1967 was a far cry from the extravaganza we know today. Fast forward 1 year, and halftime featured an airplane parade, backed by the US military. That's when brands started seeing the potential. By the late 60s and 70s, Super Bowl ads became a thing. Also because they were cheap. Especially noteworthy was this Coca-Cola ad featuring Mean Joe Green.
Hey kid. Whole world is smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life.
Thanks, Mean Joe.
It was quoted by Sesame Street, The Simpsons, Family Guy, David Beckham, and won an award for Best Commercials of the Year. But most of the commercials at that time were straightforward, focusing on product features rather than storytelling or emotions. Plain and simple explicit sales pitches. That changed drastically in 1984. During the third quarter of Super Bowl 28, Apple dropped a bombshell. They weren't there to sell a product. They were there to make a statement. The ad was called 1984, inspired by George Orwell's novel, and it was like nothing anyone had seen before. No jingles, no...
If you don't know 1984, I'm just going to pause right here for a minute. If you don't know 1984 by George Orwell, it's essentially a dystopian, it's a book about dystopian future. So the government is very oppressive and they have a lot of propaganda and they lie to their people and it's all very dark, drab and dreary and, the world is really not cool to live in. It's just like your thoughts and your speech is very controlled and there's not a lot of freedom at all and people are very poor and all that kind of stuff. So that's why this ad maybe was so striking because it's a far cry from the ads of the times where it was just a simple sales pitch like the guy's saying, and also B, it's very far from what we have today where the ads are very uplifting. They're meant to make you feel good a lot of the time or proud or excited or like positive emotions, whereas this one maybe, I don't know, I haven't watched it, but 1984 is definitely very kind of depressive in nature. So just going into this before you watch it, that's maybe a little backup information for you.
No cheesy humor, not even a glimpse of the Macintosh itself. Instead, the ad was about ideas, freedom, creativity, and individuality. Ridley Scott, the guy behind Alien and Blade Runner, directed it, giving it that bold, cinematic vibe. It was only 60 seconds long, but it stayed in people's minds much longer. They realized this wasn't just a commercial, it was a cultural moment. Apple's decision to produce and air 1984 was not without controversy. The ad was quite expensive, but Steve Jobs believed it was a necessary investment to position Apple as a revolutionary brand. The board was less convinced. They thought it was too weird, too risky, and didn't really explain the product. Early test screenings didn't help. The results were bad. Also,
What do boards actually do in a company? Like, I understand they're there to make decisions, okay? But the stock is split in a way that you have like a leader, so someone with over 50% of the equity in the company, where they own more than 50% of the company. So they end up making all the decisions anyway. And then you have a CEO who ends up just running the operations, okay? So what is the point of a board, okay? Like, what do? They sit around and they're like, okay, yeah, I vote for this, even though their vote doesn't really matter? Are they there just to like get some numbers in? They're like, oh wow, yes, quarterly earnings are up by 12%. Oh, good job. You know, like, I don't understand it. I don't know what they do. I used to work in a company I used to do finance a little bit, and there was a monthly board meeting, and every day we knew whenever it was, because every time there was a board meeting, a ton of food would be brought into the office and laid out in this massive boardroom with massive glass walls that could see into the office. So all of us would watch these old guys in suits rock up, go in there, just scran a bunch of food, like just munch down, okay? Have a little laugh, have a little giggle. Can't really hear what you're talking about because there's pretty soundproof. And then they'd leave after a few hours, and then all the food would be brought out for us and we'd eat it. And I just thought to myself, like, okay, it's cool, I get some food, like free lunch, whatever, I don't care. But what was the point? Like, did they make any groundbreaking changes to the company? Like, my job never changed between any of those board meetings for all the months I was there. So I was always struck with, like, what are they actually doing? Like, maybe an advisory role, I guess. But, you know, if anyone knows, let me know in the comments, because it's always just struck me. And this ad just reminded me of that. I'm like, what? Of course the board of directors didn't think it was a good idea, but like, it didn't even matter if they thought it was a good idea because they did it anyway. So I'm like, well, what's the point? So there you go. If you can answer that question, please let me know. That'd be interesting.
If the ad failed, it could damage Apple's image and waste a significant portion of its marketing budget. Steve Jobs didn't care, and he secured a slot during Super Bowl 28, although he didn't even know what the Super Bowl was. He just wanted to create something that stopped people in their tracks on the biggest stage possible. And that's exactly what he did. The ad exceeded every expectation. It was basically going viral before going viral was even a thing. Imagine they had TikTok back then. The Macintosh launch was just days later, and Apple sold over 70,000 units in the first 100 days. But Apple's 1984 also revolutionized the Super Bowl experience. Inspired by 1984, advertisers realized that times were changing. They were no longer just selling products. They were trying to craft moments that people would talk about. From now on, Super Bowl commercials would become a center part of the whole broadcast. And more elaborate. More money spent by the brands, more money made by the NFL, more entertainment for the audience. This money trickled down to the players, who became
That does make sense. That makes sense. Like, that's a great idea from the NFL and the football guys, and they're very lucky that Apple took that risk. I mean, Steve Jobs, a very well-known innovator at the time, so they're lucky he took that risk and like divide everyone that was saying no to him. So, you know, good for them, and to make more money, like, yeah, that's what I guess you pay for the views, because tons of people watch it. Like it said at the beginning, more than the space launch of 1969. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that you're paying a lot of money, and I don't know, I think that's really interesting that people now actually care more about the story and like the way a product makes you feel rather than like the actual pitch itself. Whereas instead of advertising a car saying like, okay, here's the horsepower, here's the compartment space, here are the seat numbers, here's the cool tech you get in the car, they say more like, okay, guys, if you buy this car, your family's going to love you. You're just going to be the best guy ever for owning this car. Or like the muscle cars where they're like, you know what, you're going to be the coolest dude or the coolest girl if you rock up in this car. Wow, everyone's going to talk about you. It really is like more about the feeling than the product itself, you know? But it makes sense. I mean, we're very social creatures, so we care very much for like what people think about us, how we're gonna feel when we have this on, when we wear this, when we turn up in this, when we look like that, or, you know, all these things play a big role. And I don't know, like you see people who spend so much money on like designer brands, for example, and it's, you think like you could get any other bag for a fraction of the price, but you want to get the Louis Vuitton bag. And it's not because the bag does better at holding stuff. It's literally just for the brand, and then also the name and the clout that comes with owning a Louis Vuitton bag. I mean, so that's like a big deal. I understand that, and I think that was a little smart thing from Apple to do, where they tapped into that psychological peer-to-peer pressure level thing, where it's more about the story and how a product makes you feel than the product itself, like the usefulness, I guess. So that's really interesting, a really kind of smart move as well.
In the 90s, advertisers fully embraced humor and celebrity endorsements as key strategies. In the 2000s, Super Bowl ads became bigger, bolder, and more expensive. The audience grew, and so did the marketing budgets. And then, social media arrived, and once again changed the game drastically. Back in the day, Super Bowl ads were tightly guarded secrets, airing just once. Apple's 1984 only aired during the game. That exclusivity created maximum aura. Now, companies employ marketing...
What? Maximum aura? Wait, this what? But dude, what are you on about? All right, maximum aura. Sure, okay, we'll run with it. I mean, you could just say maximum hype. We don't need to like brain rot this whole video. This is such a cool, very highbrow video with a lot of facts, a lot of knowledge, a lot of detail, and then they go throw in the word aura, just bring the IQ points down by at least 70. So okay, fine, it made me laugh. Fair enough.
Campaigns that often start weeks or even months before the Super Bowl. So they are not just paying for that 30-second commercial spot. Instead, they try to create a 4 to 6 week buzz across multiple platforms. This is one of the first standout examples of this new trend. It had racked up 17 million views before kickoff and became the most shared Super Bowl ad of all time. Super Bowl commercials have become large-scale productions, with budgets rivaling Hollywood movies. That is why companies try everything to maximize exposure. The commercials can be seen as an annual snapshot of the economic and social moment in the country. They try to capture the zeitgeist. Take the infamous crypto commercial in 2022. Or the fact that health and beauty companies suddenly invested in Super Bowl ads after Taylor Swift boosted female viewership. At $7 million for a 30-second spot, the stakes are higher than ever. But so are the rewards. The Super Bowl consists...
That's a good point, though, he's making. He made, like, just before with the whole thing where you get a very good snapshot of where people are. I mean, I think about the ads that cause the most controversy nowadays. I mean, this is very contemporary, and this is also a very hot topic, so I'm not going to step in any camp. I don't want you to think I'm anywhere along this political spectrum here, because I don't really care. But here's the thing. It's like a lot of the ads that got a big deal were the women's, like, Nike one. That got a bit of controversy, and then the other one was for the women, advocating for the women's league of touch. I was going to say touch rugby, but it's not touch rugby. It's American football. Okay, and those were the two ones that caused a bit of a stir, and that's like a political thing. So it makes sense. Like people are, it gives you a very, very nice snapshot of where people are currently in this time, like what the mental zeitgeist is. So it's definitely interesting if you think about it in that kind of meta perspective.
Instantly draws over 200 million viewers worldwide, and every year there is huge anticipation for what might happen during the commercials. Nobody is flipping the channel. You could miss something historic, or you don't. Speaking of brand awareness, Apple's visionary commercial played a big role in the Super Bowl becoming not only one of sports' biggest events, but also an advertising powerhouse. For over 40 years, brands have been trying to capture their own 1984 moment, always trying to create something that people talk more about than the actual game. For now, Apple's 1984 is still the measuring stick, a shining example why the advertising industry invests so much money in a few seconds of screen time. It's not about advertising for the Super Bowl. It's about creating a myth that lives on. And also because of Apple's iconic ad. The Super Bowl is the perfect stage for this. Not just for showcasing athleticism, but also, if not even more, capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that one. It's just like people want to get their brands more aware, so they spend a lot of money. I mean, I guess that is capitalism, so sure, he's right, but I don't know if that's like a bad thing, because like you said, all the players get paid, all the players spend money in different areas of their life, means, you know, all the areas that they live in get wealthier, and the people around them who interact, who sell them groceries and cars and do chores for them, you know, they'll get money as well. So it kind of is a little bit of a trickle down effect. I will kind of step in and kind of put that there and leave that there, so I'm not gonna push too much. But yeah, that was overall really cool. I love the fact that I did not know about the Apple ad being so influential. It was always a weird thing to me, like especially watching my first Super Bowl here, that there were so many ads. I mean, it was an unbelievable amount of ads. I really was. Like, it would be a play would happen, replay of the play, and then they keep yapping on the headsets, and then boom, cut to an ad, and then it's like 4 ads in a row. They're all quite long, they're all very highly produced, so they're all quite funny, or they have an interesting way of putting things, or they make you feel happy or sad. There was one Rocket ad where they sung Country Road. They sung Country Road in this Rocket Money ad, and like I remember my ex was also full of people saying like, wow, that really hit hard, like that was a really deep ad, oh man. So, you know, they reach a lot of people and they got a lot of hype. So I would see why it's worth investing. Although $8 million, that is like a whole, I mean, that's more than most people's advertising budget, I'm sure. Like, that's tons. Absolutely a lot of money. So, you know, cool. People spend that kind of money, and the ads are always funny. And it was a good old culture shock for me. So I'm here for it. I enjoyed it. I love football. I really got into it this year. So, yeah, good fun. If you enjoyed me yapping to you and talk about this video, then you are also going to enjoy my last video where I spoke about some unethical life hacks. And we watched a video with a guy where he was testing out these unethical life hacks. And we kind of discussed them. I talked through them. I say whether I do them or not right at the end of the video. So yeah, I'm going to put that in the end card. And I think if you enjoyed this, then you're going to enjoy that as well. So thank you very much for watching. And I'm sure I'll see you next time. Thank you. Have a great day.